Hi everyone, this is Michal from Airhead, and today we'll go through the most recent questions from the topic of principles of flights, and specifically from the subsonic aerodynamics. So let's jump into the first of the 6 questions that we have prepared for you today. The leading edge stagnation point of an airfoil moves towards the which surface of an airfoil as the angle of attack increases or decreases. A stagnation point is a point at which the air is neither moving upwards or downwards. Essentially, you can think about it as the place on an airfoil where the air stops. Of course, the air will move either to the upper or the lower side of the wing. So if you have an airfoil, the space where this air divides will be the stagnation point, as in the middle, the air moves neither upwards or downwards. And the question is where this point moves as the angle of attack increases. So as you increase the angle of attack, the relative airflow hits the aircraft in its leading edge. However, the stagnation point will start to go lower as the angle of attack increases. Now, as you see the leading edge, when it's at a very high angle, the stagnation point will happen lower on the airfoil, and then the air has to go all the way around the leading edge in order to produce lift and to be attached to the upper surface. This is also why at some angles of attack and beyond the critical angle of attack, the air has not enough energy to bend around the leading edge, causing a flow separation and something that we call effectively a stall. So in case of this question, the stagnation point of an airfoil moves towards the lower surface when the angle of attack increases, or upper surface if it decreases. Question number 2. Extending flaps from clean to landing configuration will have an effect on the wing's effective camber and on the stall speed. So of course the flaps have many different properties, and there are many different types of flaps. You can have a leading edge flaps, you can have normal type of flaps, Fowler flaps, and there are essentially quite a few types, and they all do slightly different things. However, generally the properties and the effect will be the same, meaning the flaps are there to increase either our CL, so the coefficient of lift, or the drag. And each configuration will serve a slightly different purpose. However, when you extend flaps from clean to landing configuration, you effectively change the CL or the camber, of course, which affects the coefficient of lift. When you have an increased coefficient of lift, that means that you can fly at a lower speed in order to keep the same lift. These, in effect, will decrease your stall speed. For example, most of the GA general aviation aircraft, which is such as Cessna 152 or the Diamonds DA20, they will stall at around 40 knots. However, this can go even lower, up to 38 or 35 for some glider-like aircraft when you have the flaps extended. So if you have more CL, that means you require less speed to keep the same lift. So if the required lift is X and you increase the CL, that means the speed required to keep the same lift also decreases, meaning that when you extend flaps from clean to landing configuration, the camber will increase and the stall speed will decrease. Some aircraft also increase the service area, which further increases the lift, and because surface area of the wing is a component of the lift equation, such as the CL and the speed. For question number 3, this asks us about the slat or flap asymmetry during, after either extension or retraction, and what can this affect, how can this affect our controllability. Flaps are high lift devices, however slats serve a slightly different purpose. So just to differentiate both of them, flaps, like we just said, increase the coefficient of lift, and also they will increase the drag, allowing us to have a steeper approach angle with lower speed, as well as they will decrease our stall speed, making approaches safer. The slats, however, they do not increase the coefficient of lift. They will, however, increase our critical angle of attack, because they will allow us to fly at a steeper angle without stalling, or they will allow us to have a bigger margin when making an approach. In case of an asymmetry, as an asymmetric flaps will, because they are high lift devices, they will create extra lift on the wings where they are extended. So if the flaps are extended on the right wing and are not extended on the left one, this means there will be a roll to the left because the right wing is now producing more lift than the left one. Slats, however, they will not affect the production of lift that much, but they will increase the drag only on that side because usually we do not fly close to critical angles of attack. So in that situation, they will not have um, much to do. However, when they're extended, they do produce drag, meaning that if you have slats extended on one wing, this wing will produce much more drag, making a yawing moment towards the wing with the asymmetry. So going back to the question, slat asymmetry causes a yawing moment, and flap asymmetry causes a large rolling moment because of the extended surface for the slats and for the increased lift on that wing for the flaps. Now question number 4. Many airplane types are equipped with speed brakes, and these are usually made up of one or several panels. Yes, so speed brakes are secondary controls on your aircraft, and also the same part or the same unit that is considered a speed brake will transform into lift dampers or ground spoilers when you touch the ground in order to dump the lift as much as you can. And these are also used to increase drag without affecting lift that much, allowing us to either decrease the speed or fly even steeper approach without reaching dangerous speeds. And there is interesting that some aircraft, not the most popular ones, not the most new airliners such as Boeing 737 or A320, however, for example, a BAE 146, so the small 4-engine aircraft, they have the speed brakes on the fuselage. So this is also possible. This is why this question has so many comments. This one has 47, because this is not something that we see every day. However, this is absolutely possible. And it absolutely happens in aviation. It has happened in the past. And also some of the fighter jets have speed brakes on the backside of the fuselage. So going through the answers that form part of the primary flight controls, no, speed brakes are secondary flight controls. Extend to airstream to create vortices to re-energize the boundary layer, resulting in increase in parasite drag. They do not re-energize the boundary layer. They do the opposite. They are there in order to increase the drag, and they actually do the opposite to the boundary layer. However, they do increase parasite drag. Extend from wing's upper surface into the airstream to disrupt laminar flow. That's true, reducing lift and increasing induced drag. So of course, they do they increase drag. Yes, not necessarily induced. They increase parasite drag. Of course, induced drag is linked mainly to the production of lift, and the speed brakes do decrease the lift. However, their main component, their main purpose is not to dump lift, isn't to increase the drag, specifically parasite drag. And this is why the question, the answer delta, so somewhere on the fuselage or wing, which extend into the airstream to create a turbulent airflow and increase parasite drag, is the correct answer. So this, the question, Charlie, also could be possible. However, this one would refer mainly to the spoilers, the ground spoilers, or the lift dampers, which decrease the lift, and they disrupt the flow completely. And this is why they're extended mainly when we have the weight on the wheels and when we're safely on the ground. And question number 5. Assuming a constant IS, when an airplane enters ground effect, what happens? So ground effect is kind of like a cushion of air on over a runway, or to be fair, any surface. And what it does is that when we are around one wingspan away from the ground, our vortices that are produced by our wings, which of course are the main components of induced drag, they hit the ground and they are not able to fully develop, meaning the downwash will decrease as the vortices are strictly linked to the downwash. And this means that our induced drag starts to drop significantly when we are one wingspan away from the ground. For the exam's sake, remember also that this effect is particularly strong for low-winged aircraft, because the closer we are to the ground, the more amplified this effect will be. And this is something that has to be considered both during landing, because once you are very close to the runway, you'll get some extra lift due to reduced drag, but also during takeoff because as you exit the ground effect, you'll get a sudden increase of drag that also needs to be accounted for and remembered during the approaches and takeoffs. So when an airplane enters the ground effect, the downwash reduces, and this is the correct answer because the vortices are not able to develop. Our downwash will reduce, and this will cause a slight increase in our effective angle of attack, and this is where this extra lift comes from, and the cushioning effect as well. And now for the last question. Assuming no flow separation, which of these statements about the flow around an airfoil as the angle of attack decreases are correct or incorrect? So, as we said earlier, the stagnation point moves down. If you decrease the angle of attack, the stagnation point will, as you think of leading edge, and the stagnation point means here, the leading edge decreases because of the angle of attack, then the stagnation point moves upwards on the leading edge, meaning the first statement is incorrect. And the point of lowest static pressure moves aft. Yes, remember that the lowest static pressure is where the speed is the highest. So there is a very easy mnemonic that I used to use when remembering these questions and these points, and I used to think about Daft Punk. It used to be a music band, and they still play music, and mainly the first part, Daft. So decrease of angle of attack, the static points move aft. Decrease, aft, Daft. That's how I used to think about it, and of course the opposite is true. For the vice versa situation. So in this case, the second point is true, meaning we have incorrect and correct answers for this question. And this will be everything. I hope this was helpful. These were the most recent questions seen in the last exams for the principles of flights and specifically subsonic aerodynamics. I wish you all the best with your studies, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.